Hey, it's Jeff Cole, and welcome to the first edition of the Excellence Insights video series, where subscribers like you can write in with questions about operational excellence, and we'll provide answers and resources. Our first suggestion comes from Helen, who works for a government organization and is asking about information on identifying and quantifying risk. Well, first up, thanks for the note, Helen, and how the heck are you? To be honest, I gotta wonder why you're asking about risk. I'm hoping that your job is not too risky out there. Also, I am hoping that you are not asking about advice on the board game risk, because I can't help you with that. If that's why you're here, you're not going to like the rest of this video. However, thanks for kicking off the series. Let's hop on over to the computer, and I want to show you a couple ways we can quantify risk inside operational excellence.
When it comes to assessing risk, there are a lot of options, and we could talk for hours, but think of these options as lying on a spectrum ranging from simple, crude, and intuitive methods that we can use all the way up to very sophisticated, data-driven, complex modeling methods that we can use. Very quickly, we're going to look at three examples, something from each end of the scale and something from in the middle. First up, let's talk about the simple end. You do risk analysis every day. You might call it something like defensive driving, or maybe setting up a PC password. A lot of this is second nature and you don't even think about it. But in business with operational excellence, risk is something you want to pay attention to. One of the simplest things that you can possibly do with your team, literally on the back of an envelope or on a bar napkin, would be to list out what might go wrong with our process, what might go wrong with our service or our product, what might go wrong with our department. Just list those out. Let's say you've taken a trip and you're now going to fly home. What could possibly go wrong with that? Well, we might write down that the flight could be canceled, it might be delayed, we might get late to the airport, lose our ticket, whatever things you and your team come up with. Once we have that, Helen asked about quantifying risk. Not all risks are created equal. Some are bigger than others. So you might use a very simple high, medium, and low kind of scale and assess our risk level. We might say there's a moderate risk of being canceled, a higher risk of being delayed, so on and so forth. So this technique is certainly better than nothing. It doesn't cost anything and you can do it immediately. But do note that it's one thing to identify and quantify the risk. It's a whole other thing to actually be prepared to act on this risk. For example, if we know there's a high probability of our flight being delayed or canceled, we might proactively come up with a list of alternate flights, information on how to get a rental car, things of that nature, so that the flight delay doesn't really impact us. So that's the simple end of the scale. Let's hop up to the middle of this spectrum, and there's a technique called FMEA. This is an acronym that stands for Failure Modes and Effects Analysis. This is a classic quality improvement tool that proactively allows you to take a look at a process, a service, or a product. Identify those key points where we are most at risk for failure, quantify that risk, and proactively take actions to reduce or eliminate that risk. Rule number one with FMEA, it is not pronounced FEMA. FEMA is the organization that comes out and helps you if there's been a disaster in your area. FMEA is the classic quality tool that's been around for decades, and it works like this. All FMEAs operate on a spreadsheet that looks like this, which you fill out going from left to right. If we were doing an FMEA for a process, we would start by listing the steps in the process. Each of those steps could fail in multiple ways, so we list the different failure modes along with the effects those failures would have on a user. We go on to list the potential causes for failures along with any controls that we might have to detect or prevent a failure. There are 3 points inside an FMEA where you will quantify the level of risk using a 1 to 10 scale, where the higher the number, the more risk that we have. The severity scale ranges from 1 to 10, where a 1 would be, if this happens, no one would even notice it. A 10 on a severity scale is something that could physically injure someone. When we look at the chance of occurrence on a 1 to 10 scale, a 1 might mean this happens very, very rarely, and a 10 could be something that has happened quite frequently. The detection scale ranges from 1 to 10 as well, where a 1 might be, we see this coming from a mile away, and a 10 means we're not going to be able to detect a failure until it's too late and the failure's already happened. The three of those numbers get multiplied together into a calculated risk level called an RPN, or a risk priority number. This will range from 1 to 1,000, and the higher the number, the more risk we have at that point. For all of the high risk items, we can assign someone the task of lowering or eliminating that risk, and when they're done, we can reevaluate how much risk has been removed from our process. If you want more information on an FMEA, click the link below this video and you'll see a short example where we take you through how to prepare one of these FMEAs. So in summary, the first portion of this FMEA is what really allows you to identify and quantify the risk. The rest of this spreadsheet is used to allow us to take those high RPN numbers, assign someone to reduce that risk, and when they've put those controls in place, we'll reevaluate and calculate how much risk has been reduced from our process. This is a very popular tool in operational excellence, and it's used a lot. Let's look at the high end of the spectrum, and that involves computer simulations. These are data-driven models that can get very sophisticated, but one of the more popular methods in operational excellence is called Monte Carlo analysis. Using a variety of readily available software, this allows you to take a process, flowchart it, collect data on that process in order to mathematically model it, and then using the software, do what-if scenarios to calculate your likelihood of success. And here's how it works. This example is for a hospital, and hospitals have what are called surge capacity plans. If there's been a disaster in the town and they get a call that 100 people are going to be coming to their emergency room in a little bit, they have plans to take the common areas and turn them into triage areas, etc. The best way to understand if they're going to be able to do that in time is to actually run those drills. But that's very impractical in a working organization. So tools like Monte Carlo analysis allow you to flowchart a process and then take some data from that process. That data could come from past experience, it could come from experiments, or you could do something as simple as this. Just saying, you know what, let's take a look at the minimum, maximum, and most likely times. You would then set this up for every step in the process. What it will do is take a random set of scenarios based on the parameters that you've set up, and it will run hundreds or thousands of scenarios for you very quickly and tell you what your outcome would be. For example, once we have this set up, it might run some scenarios at the best case, at the worst case, and it's going to run a whole bunch of random scenarios through the process using the parameters that you've set up. Then, with the click of a mouse, it will create this kind of output for you. What this has done is it has simulated running your process 1,000 times. Again, very impractical to do in a working organization. It will go on then to estimate for you your probability of success. It says we have just shy of 88% chance of success, which means we have about a 12% risk of failure. Software like this will go on to create a sensitivity analysis that will let you know which steps in your process you would want to look at in order to best reduce your risk. So there you have it. 3 different methods of identifying and quantifying risk, and I hope that's been of some help. Now, if you saw this video anywhere other than the website, please head on over to lsscert.com. We've got some good stuff for you there. You can subscribe to the newsletter. Be sure to check out the resources underneath the video, and also send me a note. Let me know what you think. Are these videos a good way of communicating with you? What other topics would you guys like to see? Also, stay tuned. Check out the website. You'll be hearing about a live event coming up later in the year where we'll do a webinar. We'll take the most popular topics and we'll address your questions live. So until next time, thank you for watching the video and have an excellent day.